Are you stretching the milk? I know the exchange rate is a nightmare right now. If you're watering it down to make it last, I need to know so we can protect her organs.
It could distinguish things to a mother's perception. You're looking for a reason to feel bad because you aren't with her 24 hours a day.
2 scoops, Amina. You are feeding my daughter 2 scoops of powder and calling it a meal?
African Karma Stories.
The beep is small, but it sounds like a gunshot in the clinical silence of the exam room. Funke Adeyemi stands perfectly still. Her eyes are locked on the glowing blue numbers of the digital scale, 6.4 kilograms. 2 weeks ago, in this same clinic in Victoria Island, the scale read 6.8. In the world of a 6-month-old baby, 400 grams isn't just a number. It is a catastrophe. Outside the window, the Lagos sun beats down on the traffic, crawling toward the Lekki Ikoyi link bridge. But inside the sterile, air-conditioned room, Funke feels a sudden, sharp chill. "Are you sure the scale is calibrated, doctor?" she asks. Her voice is the practiced, steady tone she uses for high-stakes board meetings, but her fingers are digging painfully into the leather of her designer handbag. "Doctor." Emeka does not look up from his tablet. He sighs, a heavy, clinical sound that makes Funke's stomach drop into her throat. "The scale is fine, Funke," he says quietly. But Zara is not. At this stage, the growth curve should only move in one direction, especially with the premium, imported formula you have been providing. He finally looks at her, his gaze heavy with a question she is not ready to answer. "Be honest with me," he says. "Are you stretching the milk? I know the exchange rate is a nightmare right now. I know the price of those gold standard canisters has tripled in 6 months. If you are watering it down to make it last, I need to know so we can protect her organs." The accusation feels like a physical blow. Funke thinks of the pristine canisters she delivers every Monday morning. She thinks of the tuition she pays to Bright Beginnings, a sum larger than most people's annual salary. "I don't stretch anything," Funke whispers. "I give them 5 full tins every week. They send me the feeding logs every evening. Every bottle finished." She looks at Zara, who lies too still on the scale. If the milk is there, why is she starving? The logs are a lie. But Funke is about to find out that the truth is much more expensive. Lagos doesn't forgive the weak, and it certainly doesn't pause for the tired. To survive here, you have to buy your peace of mind. That's exactly what Funke thought she was doing every morning at 7 a.m. As her SUV glided through the gates of Bright Beginnings Elite Academy in Lekki Phase 1. The academy is a fortress of organized childhood. It is a world of biometric scanners, lavender-scented hallways, and caregivers who speak in hushed, musical tones. It is the kind of place that hands out leather-bound portfolios for developmental milestones before a child can even crawl. On the walls, glossy posters promise nutrition first and uncompromised care. Funke pays for every square inch of that polish. The monthly tuition is a staggering 300,000 naira, and that doesn't include the 5 canisters of premium, gold-lid formula she drops off at the reception every Monday. It is an extortionate price, but in her mind, it is the tax on her ambition. You see, Funke is the lead marketing strategist for a global firm. She is 6 weeks away from a promotion that would make her the youngest partner in the company's history. To get there, she needs to be in the office by 8 a.m., her mind focused on quarterly projections, not worrying if her daughter is being held or heard. "We are the village your career requires," the owner, Mrs. Okoro, had told her during the initial tour. Okoro, with her perfect lace-front wig and her air of a benevolent queen, had held Zara and promised her a future among the elite. Funke believed her. She had to. In a city like Lagos, where the power flickers and the water is often questionable, Bright Beginnings felt like the only sure thing. She would hand Zara over, watch the biometric gate click shut, and drive toward the office, feeling like she had finally made it. But as she pulls away from the clinic and looks at the diaper bag in the passenger seat, she sees the returned bottle from today's feed. It is empty, but as she picks it up, she realizes the sides of the bottle aren't coated in the thick, creamy yellow residue that her expensive formula always leaves behind. It looks like someone just rinsed it with tap water. And for the first time, The biometric gates don't feel like they are keeping the world out. They feel like they are keeping a secret in. The evening commute back to IKEA is a blur of red brake lights and street hawkers, but Funke's mind is stuck on that empty bottle. At 7 p.m., like clockwork, her phone pings. It's the daily notification from the Bright Beginnings parent portal. She opens the PDF. It's beautiful, professional. There are timestamps for every diaper change, notes on Zara's social interaction, and the feeding section, 5 bottles, 180 milliliters each, 100% consumed. According to this document, Zara is thriving. She is a textbook infant. But as Funk walks into the nursery, the reality is a different story. Zara isn't crying for her dinner. She isn't even fussing. She is lying in her crib, her eyes dull and fixed on a plastic mobile. When Funk lifts her, the baby feels light frighteningly, light like a bird made of hollow bones. Her skin, usually plump and glowing, feels like dry parchment stretched over her ribs. She's just tired, Funk, Tundi says, leaning against the doorframe. He's a tech consultant, a man who lives by data, and right now, his data is the prestige of the school. The school is the best in Lagos. Mrs. Okoro is a legend. Maybe the doctor's scale was off. You know how these VI clinics can be. Tunde, look at her, Funke says, her voice trembling. She didn't even reach for the bottle when I walked in. She's fading. She's adjusting, he insists, though he won't meet Funk's eyes. It's a transition. Don't make this a thing before it's a thing. We're paying for the best for a reason. Let's just trust the process. Funke says nothing. She goes to the kitchen and pulls the empty bottles from the daycare bag. She unscrews the cap of the one Zara supposedly finished at 3 p.m. She knows the smell of the formula they buy. It's rich, almost like vanilla cream, with a heavy, oily scent that lingers on the plastic. She brings this bottle to her nose. Nothing. There is a faint, metallic scent of tap water and a thin, translucent film that looks like spit. No fat, no protein, no nutrients. She looks at the PDF on her phone, the glossy, perfect digital log, and then at the empty, scentless bottle in her hand. The logs aren't a report. They're a script. And tomorrow, Funke is going to stop playing her part. It is 3 in the morning in IKEA, and the only sound in the house is the low hum of the refrigerator and the frantic clicking of Funk's laptop. She isn't working on a marketing deck. She is building a spreadsheet of her daughter's life. On the left side of the screen, she enters the dates from the pediatric clinic's records. On the right, she enters the start date for Bright Beginnings Elite Academy. She hits the chart button. The graph that appears on the screen is a jagged, cruel descent. The moment the line crosses the date Zara started at the daycare, the growth curve doesn't just flatten, it falls off a cliff. Funk stares at the screen, the blue light reflecting in her eyes. It is a perfect mathematical correlation. Every day spent in that air-conditioned Lekki fortress is a day where Zara loses a piece of herself. She remembers a comment from a caregiver 3 days ago, a woman named Amina who had looked at Zara and then quickly away. She's just a small baby, madam. Some babies are just built like birds. At the time, Funke took it as a comfort. Now, she sees it for what it was, a distraction, a verbal smokescreen designed to make a mother doubt her own eyes. Zara wasn't built like a bird when she was born. She was a thriving, 6-pound force of nature. The lethargy isn't a transition phase. It's the physiological result of a body consuming its own fat stores because there is nothing else to burn. Funk looks at the tin of formula on the counter. It's a gold standard brand imported from the UK, costing 60,000 naira a canister. She sends 5 of these a week. If Zara were actually drinking even half of that, she would be gaining weight like a champion. The math doesn't add up because the milk isn't reaching the baby. They are stealing her food, Funk whispers into the dark kitchen. The thought is so monstrous, it feels like it should be impossible. This isn't a back-alley nursery. This is a premier institution. But the spreadsheet doesn't have a social status. The numbers don't care about Lekki addresses or Mrs. Okoro's reputation. The numbers say her daughter is being starved for profit. Funke closes the laptop. The fear is gone, replaced by a cold analytical rage that is far more dangerous. She doesn't need to yell. She needs proof. And she knows exactly how she's going to get it. The lobby of Bright Beginnings Elite Academy smells of expensive lilies and floor wax. It is a quiet, orderly place that makes Funk feel loud and messy just by standing in it. She sits in a velvet armchair, her hand gripping a folder of medical charts, waiting for Mrs. Okoro. Other mothers glide past in their silk boboos, dropping off their toddlers with a kiss and a quick word to the attendants. They look at Funke and offer tight, polite smiles, the kind of smiles women give when they think you're the one who isn't coping well. "Mrs. Adeyemi, please come in." "Mrs. Adey." Okoro stands in the doorway of her office, her arms open as if she's about to embrace a long-lost friend. The office is a masterclass in psychological warfare. It's filled with photos of Mrs. Kreese, Okoro receiving awards for educational excellence and community leadership. She sits behind a massive mahogany desk and pours 2 glasses of chilled water. "I saw your email about Zara's weight," Mrs. Okoro says, her voice dripping with maternal concern. "I have to tell you, Funke, I was quite concerned for you." Funke blinks. "For me?" "Mrs. Porlius." "Okoro, my daughter has lost nearly half a kilogram in 2 weeks. The doctor is worried about malnutrition." Mrs. Okoro chuckles softly, a sound like dry leaves. Doctors, they love to create drama, don't they? It's how they justify those Victoria Island consultation fees. But let's look at the reality. Zara is a very, very active baby. She spends her mornings in our sensory play area. She's burning calories, exploring her world. That's a sign of high intelligence, not hunger. "She isn't exploring," Funke counters, her voice rising. "She's lethargic. She's too weak to even hold her rattle." Mrs. Okoro leans forward, her expression shifting from friendly to pitying. "Funke, dear, you are a high-level executive. You just went back to work. The guilt, it does strange things to a mother's perception. You're looking for a reason to feel bad because you aren't with her 24 hours a day. You're projecting your stress onto the child." As Funke walks back through the lobby, she sees Mrs. Benson, a prominent Lekki socialite, whispering to another parent. They look at Funke's folder and then at each other, their eyebrows raised in judgment. Funke can practically hear their thoughts. Another career woman who can't handle the pressure. Another mother blaming the school for her own lack of balance. The shame hits Funke like a physical weight, but beneath it, the analytical marketing executive is still awake. "Mrs." Okoro didn't look at the charts once. She didn't ask to see the doctor's notes. She went straight for the gaslight. Funke realizes then that she is not dealing with a caregiver. She is dealing with a predator. And a predator doesn't stop because you ask it nicely. It only stops when it's cornered. She walks out to her car, her mind already moving toward a different kind of tool. If Mrs. Okoro wants to play with perceptions, Funke will give her something undeniable. Funke doesn't go to a lawyer, and she doesn't go back to the police. Not yet. In Lagos, accusations are cheap, and Mrs. Okoro's reputation is expensive. To tear down a fortress like Bright Beginnings, she needs something more powerful than a mother's intuition. She needs physics. She spends the afternoon in a specialized lab supply shop in Surulere, purchasing a handheld clinical refractometer. It's a small metal device, no bigger than a flashlight, designed to measure the density of liquids by seeing how light bends as it passes through them. If the formula is pure, the light hits a specific mark on the internal scale. If it's mostly water, the light doesn't bend enough. The numbers don't have a social life. They don't care about Mrs. Prover, Okoro's lace wigs. That night, the Adeyemi kitchen becomes a laboratory. "What is all this, Funke?" Tunde asks, watching her arrange glass vials on the granite countertop. "This is the end of the benefit of the doubt," she says. She prepares a control bottle, the gold standard formula, mixed exactly to the manufacturer's specifications. She places a single drop on the refractometer's prism and looks through the eyepiece. The blue line sits exactly where it should, high, dense, and full of the fats and proteins Zara needs to survive. Then, She picks up the bottle Zara brought home from daycare that afternoon. She had marked the bottom of this specific bottle with a tiny, invisible scratch, so she knew it was the one she'd handed over at the biometric gate. Funke's hand shakes as she uses a pipette to take a sample of the clear, thin residue at the bottom. She places the drop on the glass, snaps the cover shut, and holds the device up to the kitchen light. She looks through the lens. Her breath hitches. The blue line has plummeted. On the internal scale, the density is barely above that of plain tap water. According to the refractometer, this isn't formula. It is a ghost of a meal. It is 70% water, 30% white-colored deception. Tunde, look, she whispers. He takes the device, looks for a long 10 seconds, and then slowly lowers it. His face is gray. He's a man who deals in data, and the data just told him his daughter is being systematically starved. This isn't just about money, Tunde says, his voice cracking. If they're doing this to infants, their kidneys can't handle this much water. It causes electrolyte imbalances. It causes brain swelling. They aren't just stealing the powder, Funke. They are risking her life. Funk takes the device back. She has the what. Now, she needs to know exactly how they are doing it. And she knows there is only one person inside those walls who looks guilty enough to talk. The biometric gate hums open at 10:30 a.m., a time when no parent is supposed to be here. Funk doesn't wait for the attendant to greet her. She walks past the reception desk with a frantic, rehearsed energy. "I forgot Zara's probiotic drops," she calls out over her shoulder to the startled receptionist. "The doctor said it's vital she has them before her midday feed. I know the way." She doesn't head for the nursery. She pivots toward the service corridor, following the smell of industrial-grade floor cleaner and the clatter of plastic. She finds the kitchen a small, windowless room tucked behind the laundry. The first thing she sees isn't the milk. It's a small handheld whiteboard hanging next to the industrial refrigerator. It's a grid of names and numbers, handwritten in red marker. 180 ml, 2 scoops. Funke freezes. The instructions on her premium formula canister clearly state that 180 milliliters requires 6 scoops. 2 scoops is a starvation ration. It is enough to color the water white, but not enough to sustain a life. She scans the rest of the board. Nearly every child has a reduced ratio next to their name. This isn't a mistake. It is an optimized system of malnutrition. She pulls her phone out to take a photo when the door swings open. It's Amina, the junior caregiver. She is holding 2 empty bottles, her eyes widening as she sees Funk standing by the board. "Madam, you aren't supposed to be back here," Amina whispers, her voice shaking. Funk doesn't scream. She points to the board. 2 scoops, Amina. You are feeding my daughter 2 scoops of powder and calling it a meal? Amina looks at the floor, her hands trembling so hard the bottles rattle. "Mrs. Okoro," she says, "the children are overfed. She says we are wasting the powder." She collects the canisters you bring and puts them in her car at the end of every week. Amina moves to the pantry and pulls back a heavy plastic crate. Hidden behind it aren't the premium gold-lid tins Funke buys. There are large, generic, bulk-sized bags of cheap powdered milk, the kind used for baking, not for infants. "We mix a little of the real stuff with this," Amina sobs. "She told us it was better for their digestion. She told us if we didn't follow the ratios, we would be fired without pay." The elite brand, the biometric gates, the lavender-scented, was all a stage. Behind the curtain, it was just another Lagos hustle, built on the bodies of babies who couldn't speak up to tell their mothers they were hungry. Funke looks at the photo on her phone, the red ink that spells out her daughter's starvation. She doesn't need to hear anymore. She turns to Amina. "Don't empty those bottles. Keep them exactly as they are, because the police are already on the bridge." The high-pitched wail of a police siren cuts through the quiet, leafy streets of Lekki Phase 1, shattering the carefully curated silence of the neighborhood. A black and white police truck screeches to a halt at the gates of Bright Beginnings Elite Academy, followed closely by Dr. Emeka's silver sedan. Inspector Balogun doesn't wait for the biometric scanner. He exits the vehicle with a heavy, purposeful stride, his hand resting on his belt. Behind him, 2 officers carry a warrant that represents the end of Mrs. Okoro's empire. "Open the gate," Balogun commands. His voice is a low rumble that vibrates in the humid afternoon air. The security guard, seeing the inspector's badge and the grim set of his jaw, doesn't hesitate. The fortress is breached in seconds. Inside the lobby, the air conditioning is still humming, and the scent of lilies is as thick as ever. Mrs. Okoro emerges from her office, her face a mask of practiced outrage. "Inspector, what is the meaning of this? This is a private, high-status institution. You are distressing the children." "The children are already distressed, madam," Balogun says, stepping past her. Funke meets them in the corridor, her phone held out like a weapon. She leads them straight to the kitchen. She points to the whiteboard, the red ink evidence of the 2-scoop policy and the hidden bags of generic powder. Mrs. Okoro's mask doesn't just slip, it disintegrates. Her polished veneer cracks as Dr. Emeka begins inspecting the bottles staged for the midday feed. He pulls a handheld tester from his medical bag, similar to Funke's, and the results are immediate. 72% water, Dr. Emeka announces, his voice trembling with a professional fury that silences the room. This isn't just fraud. This is criminal endangerment. As the officers begin to escort Mrs. Okoro out in handcuffs, the midday pickup begins. Luxury SUVs pull up to the curb, and wealthy parents step out, only to freeze at the sight of yellow police tape being draped across the Elite Academy sign. Mrs. Academy. Benson, the socialite who had looked at Funk with such pity only days ago, stands by her car, her hand over her mouth as she watches the police carry out boxes of tampered logs and bags of cheap milk powder. "Look at the bottles," Funke says to the crowd of stunned parents. Her voice is clear, carrying over the sound of the idling engines. "Don't look at the gates. Look at the milk." As the raid concludes, 3 other infants are carried out by paramedics, their skin pale and their eyes sunken. They are being rushed to the hospital for emergency hydration. Mrs. Mispadek. Okoro is pushed into the back of the police truck, her lace wig askew, her elite status evaporated. The fortress has fallen, but as the sirens fade into the distance, the silence that returns to the street is heavy with a different kind of weight. The battle for the truth is won, but for Funk, the real healing is only just beginning. The house in IKEA is finally still. The sirens, the shouting, and the yellow police tape of the afternoon feel like a fever dream from another life. In the dim light of the nursery, the only sound is the rhythmic, desperate gulping of a baby who is remembering what it feels like to be full. Funke sits in the rocking chair, her eyes never leaving Zara's face. She mixed this bottle herself. 6 scoops. Exactly 6. She watched the powder dissolve into a rich, creamy gold the way it was always meant to be. No ratios, no cost-saving measures, just the fuel her daughter needs to survive. As Zara drinks, her small hands still far too thin grip the bottle with a frantic strength. It is a primal, hungry sound. Every swallow is a reminder of the days Zara spent crying out in a silence no one cared to hear. Each gulp is a heartbeat regained. Tunde stands in the doorway, a shadow against the hallway light. He doesn't come in yet. He doesn't know how to bridge the gap that his doubt created. "I'm sorry, Funke," he whispers. His voice is raw, stripped of the professional confidence he usually carries. "I wanted the status to be real. I wanted to believe that if we paid enough, we could buy safety. I let the prestige of that place drown out your voice." Funk doesn't look up. She can't. If she looks at him, she might shatter. Instead, she looks at the curve of Zara's cheek. She realizes now that the Lagos dream, the high-rise office, the Lekki address, the elite labels, was almost a tomb for her child. They were so busy climbing the ladder that they didn't notice the foundation was made of greed. She strokes Zara's hair. The baby's eyes finally flutter shut, slipping into a sleep that isn't the lethargy of starvation, but the heavy, healing rest of a satisfied body. The school is gone. Mrs. Okoro is behind bars. But as Funke holds her daughter, she knows the scars of this premium betrayal will take much longer to fade than the weight charts on her laptop. The truth about the hustle is simple. The more you pay, the more they think they can hide. And Funke is about to make sure the secret stays out in the light. The gates of bright beginnings are still draped in faded yellow tape, a rotting monument to a loud betrayal in the heart of Lekki. In the weeks following the raid, the academy didn't just close, it became a symbol. The Adeyemi case moved through the state house like a wildfire, sparking a new era of mandatory, unannounced inspections for every childcare facility in Lagos. Funke Adeyemi doesn't stay for the late-night marketing shifts anymore. She sits on her balcony, watching Zara, now vibrant, loud, and healthily chubby, chase a colorful ball across the grass. The promotion she once craved eventually came, but she turned it down. She realized that no corporate title is worth the silence of a starving nursery. She now leads a parent advocacy group called the Mother's Lens. They don't look for the biggest playgrounds or the most biometric scanners. They look for transparency. They teach parents how to read a bottle, how to decode a weight chart, and how to look past the expensive polish of a premium brand. Because in a city like Lagos, where the hustle never sleeps, greed doesn't always look like a criminal in the shadows. Sometimes it wears a silk bobu. Sometimes it speaks with a polished accent and hides behind a high-status address. People ask me if I feel guilty for not seeing it sooner, Funke says, her voice steady and wise. I tell them guilt is a waste of energy. Vigilance is the only currency that matters. If the price feels too high and the answers feel too smooth, trust your gut. A mother's intuition is more accurate than any biometric scanner ever built. The academy building is empty now, the elite sign rusting in the salt air. But in homes across the city, parents are looking at their children's bottles with new eyes. They are checking the powder. They are weighing the truth. Because the most expensive thing you can give your child isn't a premium education, it's the truth about who is holding their hand when you aren't there. Share this story with one parent who needs to hear it. The village is only as strong as the secrets we stop keeping. Keep your eyes open.